Well, hello and welcome to the Warm Chord Music Podcast. This is Jay Croft, and I want to thank you for listening to the show. Today is April 5th, and basically what I'm going to do in this episode is talk mainly about the new song that I released on March 9th, which is titled Haunted Dreams. So I'm going to go ahead and play the song for you in a little bit, but first of all, let me just kind of give you a little bit of an update on what's going on with the show, the website, the music in general. So right now, one of the things that I have going on since the song was released is I'm working with a PR company called Tinderbox Music, which is helping me get the song and a couple others that have been released in the last couple of years out to 250 radio stations across the U.S. And what we're going to be doing is doing a full-on radio campaign with college and non-commercial radio to try and get the song a little bit of play with some different folks and just get some more exposure. And then from there, the hope is to get into some Spotify playlists and to try and get some licensing opportunities with TV and stuff like that. Any opportunities really. So we'll see where that gets us. But first of all, I want to thank you guys for being so supportive. Those of you that are linked to my Facebook page or Instagram account or Twitter, you knew about the release. I have an email list as well. So if you want to be part of that, just go to warmchordmusic.com. If you go to the contacts section, you'll see a place where you can subscribe or just send me an email. It's going to be jcroft, so just the letter J, CROFT at warmchordmusic.com, and just send me your name and email, and we'll get you signed up on that. And that way you can be notified of any new releases, any updates, behind the scenes stuff that's going on. You'll be notified of that. So really, today, what we're going to talk about first is just how the song Haunted Dreams came about, some of the things that went on during the recording that I wanted to give you a heads up about. Before I do that, I would like to say that, we were put on when I say we, Warm Chord Music was put on a playlist on Spotify recently, which is pretty exciting, and it's already helped me gain some new listeners. So if you're a Spotify user, please do me a favor, go on to Spotify, look for Warm Chord Music, and become a follower. That'll help immensely. If you have any playlists that you subscribe to that you feel that any of the songs that I've put out is a good fit for your playlist, go ahead and add it. That all makes a difference, really. But the Spotify thing is becoming a bigger and bigger thing now with people not buying songs. I know some of you guys did. We had a nice influx of purchases that happened on the day of the release, which is great. But the more you stream it, obviously the better it is for artists like myself and Matt Demitz and Mary Spender and Ava Underfire, other bands that you've heard on this podcast, and other independent artists that you support. We really don't make much money at all from selling our songs anymore, but the streaming thing actually does over time pay out a little bit of money. So anything you guys can do to share the word, share the music, pass it on to friends that you think might dig it, that's cool. And streaming it, makes a difference. You don't have to buy the song if you don't want to. So Haunted Dreams. Haunted Dreams is a song that I came up with last summer. So this would have been, I think, probably May, June of 2017. I started working on this. I had a riff that I started writing that sounded very similar to another riff that I had written when I was in a band called Keep Manhattan, and that was the band that I was in shortly after I left Bedford Drive, just a band I started with Jim Henderson of Landstrider, and the song that I'd written with that band had what I would call one of the warm chords in it. I just tried that riff in a different position on the fretboard and started writing around it. The idea was, how can I use some of the ideas from that song and create something completely different from it? Because I really liked the beginning chord of that song. So that's really where that came from. The rest of the song honestly happened pretty quickly. I think the bridge, which is one of the things that I tend to struggle with the most when I'm writing songs, um, is try not to come up with a overly predictable bridge. The bridge actually came really quickly for that song, but the main riff is definitely sounds like something I would have written more than 10 years ago in Keep Manhattan. So I felt it was a pretty comfortable song to write. I really didn't have to think too hard about it, which is nice because I probably had written over 20 riffs or so, or 20 half-written songs before I got to this one, and I just felt like I was overthinking things quite a bit. And as a songwriter, that's what happens. You're writing, and I might spend a half an hour to an hour in any given session just trying to come up with different ideas. And a lot of times, I'll sit there with a program like Easy Drummer 2, or, something to give me a beat. In this song, I really didn't even have to do that. It really came about as, I guess as simple as any other song that I had ever written prior to Warm Chord music. So, so really, what I did after I got the main riffs, the verse, chorus, bridge, those ideas down, I called Jim, brought Jim into the process, kind of like as a co-producer type role. I had already written the song. Really, the melodies were all figured out, but I needed help with an intro, with some guitar intro type melody stuff. And Jim is just great at coming up with secondary guitar melodies and stuff like that to go over parts that I'd already written. He's always been great at that. So I called Jim up, and we got together. And honestly, it was like we never stopped jamming together. It was a lot of fun. We started looping the part, and then he would start playing stuff, and I would point notes notes out that I liked, and different ideas came from that. So that first session, we didn't get a lot accomplished, just because it had been the first time we had jammed together in a while, but it was enough to get the gears turning, in my head about how to finish this thing. And got together again after a while, and I think we pretty much finished it off as far as arrangement stuff. Like I said, I'd pretty much already had everything written, but I needed just that extra polish, that just the extra stuff that you really need to have a song completed. So Jim was a big help with that. So once we really got the guitar parts pretty much figured out, we brought in Ben Steves, who was the bass player in Keep Manhattan, and worked with Ben on the bass parts. The bass was interesting because in the rehearsal of the song, originally we rehearsed the song with a different drummer, with my good friend Paul Witt, who was going to play drums on this before he had a hand injury. So Ben came in, played bass, and we had this breakdown, which is really the bridge of the song, and it's kind of like a little guitar hammer-on pull-off type thing for like a lead. Then Jim does a bend guitar part, like a little lead there, and then the bass and the drums do like a fill at the same time. And so we had worked on that during the rehearsal to get that part down. And then what happened was, months later we actually recorded the parts. When Ben came in to record his bass parts, we had tried something that was a little bit more simplified for the song and for that part, I believe. I can't remember now because it's been a while, but the idea was we we wanted to get more low end on the bass, and we wanted to be more of a supporting character versus anything really driving more melody. And when I went back and listened to the recordings, I just was not happy with it. I just didn't feel the bass grooved enough. I thought it was missing something. That Ben did some really cool stuff initially during the early songwriting process of this tune, the early demos and the rehearsal stuff. I just thought the bass parts were more. They just grooved better. They were not always trying to just serve that low end of the song. It was there was some stuff that was a little bit unexpected and unpredictable about it that I really liked. So Ben was really cool about it. Came back in the studio. We re-recorded the bass completely from top to bottom. He did a killer job on it. We used a totally different bass amp too. So there was no punching in or out for the re-record. It was completely redone. We used a dark glass bass amp, and they're a fairly new company, and it's a 900 watt bass amp. This thing is a monster, but it's got two preamps built into it, like two different distortion or overdrive circuits built into it that you can toggle on and off. And they basically took these two preamp pedals that they had and put it in the amp. So you really don't need to add any distortion or anything like that through plugins or through a pedal that's built into the amp. So it's actually a really good deal for what you get. The amp is just really great. I think I don't know if it's Class D or what, but it's a 900 watt bass amp. So I mean, if we had a 210 or a 410 cab here, we definitely could have mic'd it. But in today's recording at home, you really don't need to do that. So we did a DI track. We did a track right coming from the bass amp itself, and then we did a sub track, which is just all low end, and blended those together. I worked on that for quite a bit to get that low end going. So I was pretty happy with how the bass came out. The guitars, kind of talked about that a little bit. We used three different amps for this song. We used a Rev Generator 120. I think that's mostly on the left side. I believe Jim ran through it as well, if I'm correct. And then we had a Friedman JJ100, which is the Jerry Cantrell signature head. I've since sold that head. I really, I don't want to say I got it for that song. That's kind of ridiculous to say you got an amp for one song, but for that song, I really heard a Marshall type tone. I thought it sounded really good for that song, but honestly, every other thing that I've really, been recording and playing lately, the Rev Generator 120 just beats that head every time for me. It just is a more comfortable head to play. So I've since sold the Friedman. I'm going to be getting some other equipment here very soon, which I'll talk about in a future episode. But anyway, the Friedman was great for that song. We used it on the right side. I think the right guitar track rhythm is using the Friedman pretty much. Both amps were going through, I believe, a impulse response using the Torpedo Studio unit, and it was a Bogner 212 oversized cab that we used, that I think had vintage 30s in it. But that amp or that cab impulse response was from Ownhammer IRs, and those things just sounded superb. So I'm using that IR on a lot of different demos that I've done recently, and it's great every time. So drums, with the drums, Paul Witt was originally supposed to do the drums. Like I said, he had hurt his hand a couple weeks before the session, so I basically had to learn his drum parts. They weren't completely finished yet, but enough to know what to do. And Paul and I had gotten together, just the two of us, not that long before the recording session, actually, to kind of work through what the drum parts were going to be. I had a really clear vision for what I wanted uh, on the drums, and being a drummer most of my life, it wasn't really that hard for me to kind of pick it up. There was a fill in the bridge, in the breakdown, that I had to work it out. I had to figure out what I was going to do, and I ended up being really happy with it. But I put a YouTube video up not that long ago that will show you how I play the part, because I find that the drums don't come through the mix as well as I think I would have liked at times. I think that for what the song is and what the focus of the song being the story, I was really careful to not let the drums kind of take away from that. So I don't feel like everything that is going on in the behind the scenes with the drums, that you're going to hear it all that well at times. So I did that little video just to kind of give you both an audio and visual idea of what is really going on behind the kit. So if you're a drummer, I think you'd probably dig that. So go ahead and go to the YouTube channel, and I just recorded it real simple, down and dirty with the iPhone. So nothing fancy, but it's just enough to at least give you an idea. And I'll tell you what, if you guys have ever used your iPhone to like record a practice, like if you're a musician, or just going to a concert and using the mic from your phone, I'm surprised how well that thing sounds, really, for what it is. I think it's got like some self compression, like automatic compression going on with it, because the stuff that I'd recorded with it, I mean, the phone wasn't that far away from the drums, and it didn't really start to peak out or get all you know staticky or anything, which is what I would have expected. But so off topic thing, but it is an actually pretty good mic for just real quickly doing something. So drums, I used my DWs. I used all Zildjian cymbals. Tried a different snare that this time around. I actually borrowed my friend Ryan Looney, from the guy who replaced me in Bedford Drive. Ryan let me borrow his Black Beauty, which is a 6.5 by 14 hand hammered Black Beauty with the tube lugs. Beautiful snare. We threw a different head on it. I don't have it in front of me. I think it was like a P77. It was like a Power Stroke Remo head or something like that. It had a dot in the middle too. Just a really nice snare head. I really liked it. It was the first time I'd used it, but I had tried it at Gearfest at Sweetwater a couple years ago, and I really liked the head on a snare that I tried there. So we put that head on there and tried a different mic on the snare. I'm not going to get all into the mics because honestly, I don't know how much you guys care about that. If it's something that you really want to know, let me know, and I can make that a little bit more of a focus in the future. But for casual listeners, I don't know how much you guys care about this kind of stuff. But with this podcast, part of it is really just getting into the nitty gritty of how this stuff is recorded. So last bit about the drums would be that everything was recorded to a metronome. So I'd recorded, basically what I do when I'm recording these songs is I like to try and record the drums at a studio, because I find that then I can focus completely on my performance as a drummer, and when I'm doing the drums. So I basically took the guitar tracks, recorded them to a click. So you got the constant tempo. I think the tempo of the song is 173. So recorded it to click track, took those audio files to Woodshed Studio, then recorded the drums, playing along to the pre-recorded guitars and the click track. and that's really how I did it. So Ed Sertage was the recording engineer on this, on the recording tracks at Woodshed. I know we ran through some API mic pre's. We ran through, I think, some SSL pre's that he had. We ran through a couple distressors for the snare, I believe. We tried something different on the snare that I don't think I'll do again, or at least not with this combination of mics. But we used this new SE Electronics mic that was supposed to be really good for rejecting hi-hat bleed, and paired it with a Rode NT5 to get that smack. And I'm not sure if the combination of mics really worked out all that well, because when I got the recording back to my house, I just felt like I didn't get nearly as much real tone out of that NT5 as I expected. NT5 is a pencil condenser, which isn't something that you typically see on a snare. You really have to pad the hell out of it so that you don't blow the mic capsule out to the point where it's all distorted. So once we did some work on that, I think it sounded okay, but I didn't use that mic, the track on that with that mic, nearly as much as I plan to. So that's about all I'm going to get into right now with the whole recording of it. We can talk more about that in the future if that's something you guys want to hear about. But I just want to give you guys an idea of just kind of from the start of the process to actually getting it recorded and then bringing the tracks home, what goes into it. I mean, with the guitar and the bass, everything is done at my house. Bass and guitar all done here. Drums is done at the studio. And then the drum tracks are brought back to my house. And then I re-record the guitar and bass over top of the drums. Because if you just keep the original guitar and bass demo tracks, which we call scratch tracks, they're not going to line up with the drums, because honestly, as a drummer, you focus on playing to the click. The guitars are really there just as a guide, and then you go back and re-record the guitars and lock in as much as you can with the drums, and that's what I did. So anyway, vocals. I guess I'll give you a little bit more info here before we play the song. So the vocals were done by 2 session vocalists. I worked with Studio Pros. I originally went through a company called soundbetter.com, which is a cool website, but it just didn't work out with the vocalist I initially went with. I thought she was really talented, but for what I was trying to do, it just didn't end up working out. She gave me some good ideas, about how to pursue the rest of the song vocally. There's some things that she came up with that I thought were good, but overall, I didn't use any of the tracks, but there were some ideas that she came up with that I thought were solid. So when I basically recorded a scratch track of me singing most of the stuff that I wanted sang on the tune for the female vocalist and the male vocalist, and turned around over to studiopros.com and hired a couple session singers there. They go under, basically the names are fake names, but Nicole and Aiden are the 2 people that I hired, and they knocked it out of the park. I was really, really happy with it. In fact, I recorded a testimonial video for Studio Pros in hopes that they will feature the video and the song on their YouTube page and their website. So we'll see if that works. But I was really happy with it. The price was right, and it was a really good deal. I got very professional tracks, and then they knew what I was going for. So if you're looking for session singers and you don't know anybody in your local area, or at least don't know anybody that can pull off what it is you're looking to do, definitely check them out, because they're worth it, and they will work with you and help you pick the right person if you have some doubts about who can best carry out the vision for your song. So anyway, let's go ahead and play the song. It's about 4.5 minutes long, and it's called Haunted Dreams. So thanks, guys, for checking it out, and we'll chat for just a little bit on the other end. And thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Okay, that was Haunted Dreams, which which is now available on iTunes and Spotify, YouTube. It's going to be on Tidal, Deezer, Amazon, it's on right now too. So it's Apple Music. It's pretty much everywhere that you can get digital music. So, if you like the tune, please go check it out. Like I said earlier in the episode, you don't have to buy it, but if you want to stream it, add it to a Spotify playlist. That's great. That'll be fine. If you want to save it, on Spotify, you can actually download the song and have it offline, so you don't have to be online to listen to it. It is going to be on Pandora, which is really exciting. I'm waiting for the final word on that, but I was given an email from them on the actual day of release because I'd submitted the song about a week ahead of time, and they actually approved the song the day of the release, which is really exciting. In addition to releasing this cool song, um, online everywhere, then I find out that Pandora has approved it. I'm just waiting for them to. They have this thing called music. I think it's like their music genome or gnome. I don't know what you call it, but basically they take the song and they figure out what other artists it sounds like or what's the mood. They basically kind of figure out a lot of metadata for you, and that's really how your stations are put together. So when you put in, into Pandora and you type in AC/DC, yeah, you're going to get some AC/DC songs, but you're also going to get bands probably like Rhino Bucket or something like that. Other bands that sound or have songs similar to AC/DC or whatever. So they look at the type of bands that are similar. They look at, what it is about the song that is comparable to other things. And that's how they come up with your stations. So it'll be interesting to find out when you type in Warm Chord Music or Haunted Dreams and that song comes up, what's going to come up after it. That's what I'm actually really interested to find out. So once that is confirmed, as far as when it's live on Pandora, I'll be able to let you guys know that, because that'll be pretty exciting. I've been trying to get on Pandora for a while. Last couple songs that I submitted to them did not get approved for whatever reason, probably just didn't fit their programming, but this one did. So I'm very excited about doing that. Trying to think if there's really anything else that's really that important regarding the release of this tune. And honestly, I'm drawing a blank, so I'm probably just gonna phone it in here, guys. Again, thank you for listening to the podcast. We're gonna be getting some different guests on here pretty soon. Again, I'd like to try and get Brian Wampler from Wampler Pedals on here. That'd be great. I know Mary Spender was on episode 6. If you haven't heard that one yet, you really should check it out. Very pleasant person to talk to, and Mary's extremely talented. Her new song, Only One, I think it's called. It's really, really good. It's on Spotify. You can check that out. But I know she's just wrapping up a tour or something like that. So she's supposed to be coming out with a new album. When that comes out, I'd love to be able to talk to her again about that. The Ava Under Fire episode is number 5, which is really, really cool. So if you guys are fans of, female fronted rock bands, or just, really good independent rock bands in general, check them out. They're actually recording a video pretty soon here locally. So that's exciting. I know they're working with a producer named BJ Perry, which I know they're excited about working with him. And it sounds like the stuff that they are going to be putting out is going to be next level. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. One of the things I know I've talked about in previous episodes is, favorite albums. And I want to turn that around this time. I've talked about what my favorite albums are in general, but lately the things that I've been listening to has been quite diverse. And I've been picking up some vinyl lately too, which is something that I love to collect. So one of the bands I've been listening to a ton lately has been Soul Asylum. They were one of my favorite bands in the 90s, and Grave Dancers Union and Let Your Dim Light Shine are 2 great albums, favorites of mine. But Grave Dancers Union, I can remember listening to the cassette tape of that while riding my bike around my parents' subdivision, just for, for a good hour or so, and just, while the streetlights were on, dark time, my bike, riding my mountain bike around the subdivision, just in the same pattern, really listening to, Black Gold and Someone to Shove, Runaway Train. Um, there's a lot of great songs on that album, but those are the first three, I believe. Get On Out, April Fools is a pretty different type of song. Um, there's Leave Without a Trace. That's another tune on that record that's really, really good. So check that album out. If you haven't listened to it lately, give it another listen and check out the deep cuts on that song. There's some really well written songs on that. And it's just a really, really cool disc. Also, listen to the new Judas Priest record. Um, Man, the name, I don't know if it's called Firepower, but I bought the vinyl of that. That thing sounds great on vinyl, but it's an awesome record. Really, really into that record. It's pretty sweet. So check that out. I did find a band. I'm gonna pull up my Spotify account really quick for you. Um, this this playlist that I got added to on Spotify is pretty cool. It's all independent bands that submitted their music to this playlist, and I've been listening to a lot of the different songs on it, and I thought it was pretty neat. So let me pull up the name of this band. Um, it is called Crossing the Limits. The name of the band is called Crossing the Limits, and the name of the song is called Reverse. But they have some other songs as well on their Spotify page. So um, check it out. I don't know a ton about them. They just released a new song, it looks like, called Perseverance. But there's a song that they have called Won't Settle, which I thought was really, really good. I'd love to get these guys on the show. So that's something I'm going to try to do. But funny enough, they're also from the UK, I believe. So that, just from dealing with the whole coordinating the episode 6 with Mary Spender, that is a time difference there of about 5 hours. So that is a challenge to try and do. But definitely would like to talk to them, because I thought that um, their song on here was really, really good. So anyway, that's it for me today, guys. Hope that you guys have a great day. Hope you had a safe Easter. Hope your family's doing well. We're going to continue working on new material here, new songs. I've got a lot of updates to tell you guys about in the near future here with what's going on. But I think for now, this gives you a good idea of what I've got going on with Warm Chord Music, and just real exciting times. So thanks so much for your support, and we'll talk to you soon on the Warm Chord Music Podcast. See you guys.